So, meine Lieben, wir sind hier bei WARHORSE und wir haben für euch hier Kingdom Come Deliverance. Hier sitzen nämlich mit uns zusammen zwei Leute, die haben Ahnung davon und die werden wir jetzt befragen. Und da haben wir die Fragen, die ihr zusammen erstellt habt, für euch. Imagine you would need to convince a hardcore fantasy fan to play a game without Dungeons and Dragons. How would you do so in one sentence?
Try the real thing. No, well, basically it's very similar, and a lot of people are afraid that it's not going to be as interesting because there is no 100 spells and stuff. The answer is like Red Dead Redemption has no fantasy at all as well, and it's also interesting. Call of Duty has no fantasy at all, and it's also interesting. So we do a lot of other stuff that fantasy games don't do. So the game is quite sophisticated. There's enough content. You can do a lot of stuff. You can still level up your character in many different ways. So the thing is that you can experience medieval period as it really was, hopefully. And I think that some of the, as they say, sometimes the real world is more interesting than the books or fantasy. And I believe that this is the case, that the story we are trying to tell is more interesting than a lot of those bring me 7 pieces of magic sword stories in most fantasy games. And the fact that it actually happened, the big scale events that we show, it's just a plus for me because you can see stuff that you haven't knew that actually happened, and it's maybe interesting for some, and it's still a very good game, I guess.
Would you describe it in some different way?
Sorry, what you mean?
How would you describe this game or convince fantasy players?
Question. Oh, okay. Well, actually it's a trip to the 15th century, and you can go in there, you can live there, you can fight there, and you can just go around the world, and who wouldn't want a time machine? So that's it.
Awesome. Thank you. There was some discussion on what to do in an RPG without fantasy elements. Could you give us a few examples on what activities besides questing you could pursue?
Basically, the closest thing would be the Red Dead Redemption I mentioned already. There's a lot of quests. What we try to do is to let you do the quests by several different ways. So there's a lot of freedom, a lot of options, a lot of moral choices. Very important thing are interesting characters. So in some other games, people just give you tasks and then you go somewhere, kill someone, bring them something, and it's over. In our game, we try to explain why do they do it, go deeper, and then give you some more choices. Somebody asks you for something and you can basically screw him up and do something directly the opposite. You can fulfill the quest by different ways. So you can basically experiment with the world and try to break it. Basically, that's one thing that we are trying to do, and that's a lot of it provides a lot of content, a lot of experimenting. The other thing is that we still have a lot of random events, for example. So yes, in the real world there is no dungeon every 100 meters like in RPG games, but on the other hand, when you travel around the world, you can meet people during the travel, and some stuff can happen. You can be attacked by bandits, you can help people that are in some desperate situation. So we try to fill the world with events more than places, but there's also a lot of places. The map is quite large, and there's a lot of interesting locations.
So we're talking about the world. There's one important question. Are there other open world games that served as an inspiration for your world?
Well, the game borrows or uses a lot of things that Skyrim or Elder Scrolls games established. It's a first-person RPG. A lot of the things are very similar, but the thing that's very different is the world and actual content. Our approach to quest is very different. It's much more non-linear, let's say. We also put a lot of emphasis on storyline, but in terms of world, like the environment, the closest would be the Red Dead Redemption, because it's also a realistic world. I would say that the level of realism there and the uh, amount of locations in the world is very similar what we want try to achieve.
Always a favorite. What about housing?
Housing?
Establishing a house or some kind of home zone.
Well, since it's story-driven game, we will give you a place to stay in the story, and there will be more places like that, most likely. But so far, there is no option to build your own house or fill it with stuff. You can store equipment in your house, but that's about it for now. But I know that a lot of people would like to have something like that, but there is a lot of time ahead of us. There will be future updates or something that maybe, but now in this first iteration, that's not the plan.
I see the first couple DLC.
Well, yeah, or it's an open world, so you just come to some house and kill everyone in there, and you have a house. And
That's
you
great.
can every neighbor, and you have a village. But well, someone put eventually notice, and guards come, so you have your own battle. So it's awesome.
So whenever another aspect, because in other games when you kill the entire village, what happens then is that everybody wants to kill you every time you go there. But what we try to do, for example, is there's a crime system in the game, and so the bodies should not be left on the street forever. Somebody will remove them and bury them. And even if you are not seen doing the crime, we will change the mood or awareness of people in the village. So if you kill a lot of people without anyone seeing you, people in the village should be very suspicious. So if you want to do something with them, like quest, they will not give you a quest, for example, because they will be afraid that you could be the killer. So that's what we are trying to do. So we are trying to improve all those little details that are, for me at least, quite annoying. I don't like when I kill someone and he's lying there for the rest of the game, and everybody, every time they walk around him, is like, oh, that body. That's what we try to avoid, and it's quite hard. So hopefully we will make it.
So main focus on artificial intelligence.
Yes, that's a huge task. It's very, very, very difficult. Every time when everybody is announcing new RPG, he tells about the living world, and then when you play it, you are usually disappointed because you see that people are either standing on one location and doing nothing, or they are just playing some animations. Everybody who will play our alpha right now could see that we already improved on this a lot. I would say that the people are really doing stuff. They are going on their daily routines. Right now, you can break it. You can kill them, for example. You can like interfere with it, but they are doing it. And the thing is that that's already working in the game. For example, if you kill the bartender and the guy is supposed to go to the pub, he will realize that nobody will serve him. If he sees the body, he will going to the local bailiff and tell him that somebody killed the bartender, and then he will go on his another business, because every character in the game has some kind of will or preference. So, for example, he likes to go to the pub, I don't know, read books, which is unlikely because people couldn't read, and or talk with his neighbor. And if something fails, he will continue with something else. So he will also act differently every time because he chooses one of these hobbies, preferences. Am I right? Because I'm not the AI guy, so.
Yeah. Well, actually, what we want to achieve was the living world. So actually, every person has its role in the world, has hobbies and desires and stuff. So if you just look at the world, it should work. The player is nothing special. They don't care that he's there unless he's killing all the village. So they are just going, they wake up in the morning, they eat breakfast, and they go to work. At the evening they go to have some fun, and they have those desires, so they actually choose what they will do. And if there is not an option, for example, they want to go to the pub and there is no pub, or bartender is dead, so they may go fishing, or they may go home and just swear that it's very bad that there is no pub.
Quite unpredictable, because currently we have a new village in the alpha. I don't know how many people live there. 20, 30?
Like 30. Yeah.
30? So 30 people. It's like few buildings, like 5 or 6 buildings, and 30 people. And I went to the village during the noon, noon, and it was empty. I was like, it's broken. Nobody's here. Like, we need to put more people in it. And then Victor came like, yeah, it's weird because there should be 30 people. And then we realized that everybody was on the fields or in the pub in the other village. So everybody went somewhere, and the village was totally empty. But those 30 people were traveling around the world, and we couldn't find them.
It was sunny day, so they all decided, oh, let's go to the fields. It will be great to make fields today because it's not raining. So they went to
then
fields.
you realize that even today, if you go to the village, and at 1 p.m. there's nobody on the square because everybody's in the work. So basically, it works as it should. But then when you play a game, you are used to that somebody's everywhere basically. And so we changed their professions so they stay more. Some of them stay in the village, so there's somebody there. So that's how the AI works.
Okay, next question. One of the consequences you can face in your reputation is being thrown in a prison. Is it going to be looking at the bars of your cell for 2 hours, or do you plan on how are you trying to implement that?
We want to. I don't know if we want to spoil this, but it has some. Well, let's say it's a very important part of the crime system, because when there is no punishment, or when there's just game over or load, then it kind of sucks because without the punishment or responsibility, there's no
Spice.
Yeah, and so we had to come up with some solution that will punish the player for being nasty without ruining the game. And I think we solved it. So it's going to be,
Spoil it,
but I don't want to spoil it yet.
please. Quite a bit.
Well, you really will be in the prison, and there are going to be serious consequences for doing it.
Punishment.
I'm not sure about some features that if we are going to be able to implement it, because we had a huge plans for it and we needed to get a little bit to the ground. But I still think it's going to be awesome. But I not spoil it.
Well, okay, I see. Are the players being punished kind of differently for what they did somehow? So if you go out there and kill a chicken, you will get arrested for a few minutes. But if you go out there and wipe an entire village,
The price of the chicken, of course. But interesting thing is, for example, when you kill the person in 15th century, you surprisingly should not necessarily would be killed or executed. For example, nobles, they would basically could walk away out of it without any punishment. If it was a poor some peasant, they could. Or the process of judging them would be very complicated. Only king or someone could judge them. So they should be brought to the capital. It could take years after to have some justice in this case. And when somebody killed someone, even murdered someone, he could still agree with the family, pay them some price, and eject a cross on the crossroad as a sign of kind of forgiveness and he would be fine. People were not put into prison for years. They were either punished by some way quickly or killed, but since keeping person in a prison is expensive, they didn't do it. They tried to as fast do something with, like, release the person and put him away, because if you kept him in a prison, you should pay the guards, you should pay the food for him. It was very expensive and nobody wanted to do it. So the crime system or justice in the medieval times were very different from today.
I already see myself getting spanked on the town square. So what about modding?
Oh, yes.
Yes, okay, great.
It's a good question. Well, we are using CryEngine, so we are ready for mods. However, we modify the engine a lot because, well, we have different games well, we create different game that it was usually created for. So even the Crytek editor, or Sandbox editor, which is publicly released and people can make anything with it, is somewhat upgraded in our game. So what we will need to do is to upgrade the tools so the people can use it. So it's a lot of work for us, but we definitely support it and we want to create it as soon as possible, which doesn't mean that it will be available on release, but
The question is if we release the tools as it is, and people will be complaining, but they will have the head start and we can polish it later. But so far our tools are made for us, and it means that they are quite rough sometimes.
Yep.
But definitely it shouldn't be a problem to release them as it is, and they'll just like with case, for example, with Mafia, nobody ever released any tools and people programmed them, and they are making the mods. It's 10 years something, and they are still developing mods, and they develop a lot of tools for the game, and I was quite surprised. So now they will have a lot of tools at the start. They may be not perfect, but we are definitely going to support modding or even promote it, or like we want people to do it. There's no reason why shouldn't we.
So, also ein Aufschrei an euch da draußen. Fangt an zu modden. So, let's talk about post-release plans for a second. DLC or full-fledged?
That's a tough one, because like currently our focus is really finishing what we are making, and it's a lot of work. But as we said, this game is part of the 3 acts. So basically, it has some form of conclusion, but the story continues, and the like real big ending is going to be in Act 3. So after Kingdom Come Deliverance, there should be Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, when we will close the story, and it's still too early to say date or form or the price, but there definitely should be some form of sequel when we will close the big story arc. There is a story arc within the Deliverance, of course. It will close at the end of the Deliverance, but there is a kind of cliffhanger as well for the bigger story arc to continue. So there should be some continuation, but I can tell you right now if it's going to be DLC, or it's not going to be DLC, most likely. But we can say it for sure.
Okay. There was quite some debate about downgrading the recent years. Will there be a difference in graphical detail between PC and console?
That's a tough one. Now I'm walking on hot.
nice.
Well, but and that's it. No. Currently, we are working on the PC version. We definitely, so people will look at this alpha. It looks quite good, I would say, and it's not optimized. It's not the full-scale world. We are still bringing it together. It's possible that when we add everything to the game, which we still didn't do, we will realize that we need to optimize somehow. So it's possible that we will have to do some optimizations, and it may have some effects on the visuals. Nobody knows which effects. For example, this month we managed to improve the grass, for example, was slowing the frame rate down, so we had to optimize it. But the result is that the grass looks better, there's more grass, and it's faster. So that was the good optimization.
Okay.
But it could end up the opposite, that would be less grass, it would be faster, but it would look ugly. So we managed to do it the good way. For example, this month Crytek gave us the new version of the lighting system, which is awesome. At first it seemed that it will be too slow, that like when we first run it, it was like 10 frames slower. So that was like no go. But then our artist managed to do something, and it has no impact almost on like 1 frame or something on the frame rate. So most likely in the next alpha we'll have new lighting system that's like really, if you think now that it looks good, it will look much more, like even better, a lot better. So that's another optimization for better. but then we may realize that we need to lower something. Definitely, consoles are tricky part, but currently we are working on the consoles, and it's running. It's not running that well. We haven't spent that much time about it, so it's quite hard to tell the differences between the PC and the version. But of course, that high spec PC is faster than consoles. It's also much more expensive, which is the case why people buy consoles. So there's going to be a difference, but it's hard to say how and on what PC. And
If I might add it, we are actually releasing the semi-public alpha for backers, and we do nothing just for the alpha, just for the show. Everything what is in there is created by our system, and this is how the game should look on the PC at the end. So, no, nothing.
There's one upcoming question.
Okay.
So, okay, you plan to make a quite realistic combat system. Are you planning to focus on the hardcore crowd, or will there be some kind of alternate system so you don't, well, scare the casual gamers, the mainstream?
well, that's. I don't think it's like I wouldn't put it this way because like our goal is to make it as easy to control as possible. I don't know if you played it and if you find it too complicated. That's,
I've seen it so far on the E3, so it's well, kind of new.
it's different, let's say, but so far the first reactions are quite positive. Like I was very happy because I was afraid that people will say, "Oh, it's weird, I don't like it," but so far people seem to like it. And the trick is that it's really easy to control. Like you really use 4 buttons and 2 thumbsticks, or mouse and keyboard, and two mouse buttons and 2 buttons on the keyboard. So it's quite simple to control it. You need to get used to what to do, but I think it's very simple. We have a quite okay tutorial for it, so people can get it in a few minutes. But so it should be easy to control. But on the other hand, it's very different. For example, if you have armor, you are almost invincible. So if you buy a very big armor, you can kill anyone without the armor quite easily. If you don't have a helmet, everybody can kill you with 1 blow, basically. That's the hardcore aspect. So Victor is a big fan of Dark Souls. So
Yeah. But we are not
I'm
creating
not
another
saying it's
Dark
going to be
Souls.
that hard, but like we want to have this aspect of kind of fatality of combat. So you should think twice before you attack someone. And the combat is not going to be as often as in other games, but when it happens, it should be very intense. And plus, we, for example, want to give the player a chance to surrender sometimes, or give enemies can surrender, and you can set them free, which is also something that happened. So, like, the medieval times were not that brutal as people think. That it could happen that you, for example, siege a castle, and then the people who were defending the castle joined your army, and everybody was happy.
Just a random.
Yeah, they are like, you guys want to join us? Yeah, so now guard the castle for us. That really happened.
Awesome.
So it wasn't that you siege a castle and then kill everyone because they are the guys who killed your friends defending the castle. It was like business. Like, you defended it, you lost. Like, would you want to join us? That these things happened, and we somehow want to have them in the game as well.
Just a few words about it. If you may, it's still an RPG, so if it's combat too hard for you, you can just level up, or you can buy a better armor, and it will be a lot easier. So you can use these RPG systems if you are not very good in action games, or you don't like to play them. So just do something else in the game, level up, and the combat will be easier for you. And that's the answer for this.
Most of the quests could be completed in a non-violent way. That's our goal as well. So if you want to play as a bard, you can basically level up your speech and convince and bribe people. You can be an archer and kill people from afar. So we don't want to force you to do anything. Like there's, as I said, there's a lot of different solutions for every quest, and the violent one is only one of them.
Awesome. So, also wie viel Zeit haben wir jetzt noch? 2 Minuten noch. 2 Uhr. Achso, also sind halt 2 Minuten. Okay, dann nehmen wir dann. You financed the first part of the game with Kickstarter. Would you do that again with, let's say, Kingdom Come 2?
That's a tough one because if we are successful, and I hope we will, we should not need it. So it could look kind of greedy. But on the other hand, a lot of people who are on Kickstarter right now, or I guess even Kickstarter people themselves, would I'm kind of asking people to do it actually because, well, it helps Kickstarter and other projects. So if you have a good name and go to the Kickstarter, people will be, you will attach a lot of people to other projects as well. So it will not only help you but other projects as well. So and it's kind of nice to have some response from the player. So you should. There's no need to do it just for the actual money you raise there, if you have the money, but also like you are letting people vote with their wallets. So do you really want it? And like just to click on something on net, it's simple. But if you want to support it with the money and then receive the product actually, so it's you are not giving the money for free away. It's much tougher decision. So you really know if people are interested or not because they vote with their money, which is much more serious decision. So that's interesting question. I don't know the answer yet. It depends on the situation. Maybe we will not sell enough games to make a sequel, so we will have to go to Kickstarter if we want to make a sequel. Maybe we will have shitloads of money and we will just like buy a yacht and go to somewhere on the ocean. But most likely, it's a possibility.
Okay. Last words you want to say to our audience, to our viewers, somehow?
If you want to try the game, you can. If you back it, which you can still on our page, you can download the alpha. The alpha is already several hours of content. There's 10 quests, 3 square kilometers or even more maybe. So if you want to see the game, you can. Right now we are trying not to spoil the story, so the alpha is kind of like a remote, small location with not any main quest, but there's going to be quite epic quests as well, just not now. And so if you are interested, give it a try.
Well, thank you for the interview and goodbye.